Hi amiguis, welcome to today's video. I'm going to keep this intro very short, very sweet. Last month in October, I was in Europe. I went on a quick week-long trip with my parents and my sister, and we went to London and to Paris. The first third of the trip was in London, and I uploaded a video dedicated to our 3 days in London already. And this is the Paris portion. A quick snippet of our time there. We had a lovely time and I wanted to share with y'all and also show y'all the little journaling spreads that I made for our travels. I am in the early stages of my journaling era, so just learning, having fun with it, and I am really happy with how these pages came out, so I wanted to share that with y'all and hope you enjoy this little travel video. Thanks for being here.
We took the train from London to Paris early on a Monday morning, got to the station after a few hours, and got to our accommodations, which were very close to the train station. We dropped off our stuff and very quickly went to explore the city. Stopped at our corner store, bakery, and we got some stuff, some sandwiches, and then headed to the city center. So we walked along Champs-Élysées. I apologize in advance for all my pronunciation throughout this video, but I'm gonna try my best. So we walked along that street and then we went to the Eiffel Tower and we had a quick little picnic because we hadn't eaten anything all day, and it was a cloudy day, but the tower was beautiful. This was our first view of her, and there she was in all her glory. We had some great sandwiches, and then we walked over to Pont Alexander, and just across from this bridge are the Grand and Petit Palais, but since it was a Monday, these were closed, so unfortunately we couldn't go inside, but they're very beautiful on the outside as well. I do wish we could see the inside of those museums, but since they were closed, we headed to the Arc de Triomphe. It took us like a hot sec to figure out where the underground passage to get to the bottom of the arc was, but we figured it out eventually. It really wasn't that hard. I think we were just tired. So after this, we headed back to the neighborhood where our accommodations were and just called it a night after this. So that was our first day in Paris. It was a great start to the trip, and this is my spread for the travel journal for that first day. I kind of broke up the travel journal spreads for this trip by each day of the trip because we did so much. It was a little hard to fit it all, so I dedicated one whole page for each day. And so this is that first one. Like I said, I'm very new to travel journaling and just to journaling in general, so I don't really have any structure or any specific ways that I typically do this, so I'm just kind of seeing what calls to me. I added some pictures for each day, some stickers, and then I wrote down like a journal entry for everything that we did on that particular day. Day 2 started with a breakfast provided by our lovely bed and breakfast hosts. Then we headed to Montmartre, which is a neighborhood that is really close to where we were staying near the Gare du Nord station. And the whole Montmartre neighborhood is one of my favorite spots in all of Paris. You get this beautiful overlook of the city, and there's just a lot of cute shops, and it's on this hill, and it's just a really great vibe. So this was our first visit. We made several, as you will see later on in the video, but this was our first day here, and we went to the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. This is a very iconic basilica of Montmartre, and it was very beautiful inside. We saw the Virgen de Guadalupe, which was very random, but cool to see Our Lady there. After this, we just kept exploring the neighborhood. We walked around. It's a very hilly neighborhood, so it's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of really cute shops, like I said, restaurants, and just a lot of very pretty alleyways and souvenir shops. And it was early in the day, so some things were still closed. The French movie Amélie takes place in Montmartre, and it's my mom's favorite movie, and I love that movie as well. So we went to several of the filming locations, including this little market stall, which was closed, but it was still cool to see. And then we went to Place des Abbesses, which is this really pretty square, and it's where the famous Love Wall is located. But unfortunately, there was some construction going on, so there was a lot of areas that were blocked off. It wasn't accessible, so that was kind of sad, and people were just taking pictures with this copy of it on this wall instead. But yeah, after this, we walked back to Boulevard du Clichy, and we went to go see Moulin Rouge. Very, very iconic, of course. We didn't get to see a show here, but we just got to see it from the outside. Very cute. And then after this, we went to Café de du Moulin, which is another one of the famous filming locations for Amélie, and it's really cool. It looks exactly the same inside as it does in the movie, and we sat down and got a little coffee and some pain au chocolat, and it was a very cute, fun time. After our morning in Montmartre, we walked down to Galerie Lafayette, which is this shopping mall that's really pretty on the inside, and then on the rooftop it has a terrace that you can go to, and it's open, and it has this beautiful view of the city and a beautiful view of the tower. So we went here, took some pictures. It was a beautiful day in Paris. After spending some time on the terrace, we also did a little bit of souvenir shopping at the actual shops at Galerie Lafayette as well. Then we continued our walk, and we walked past Palais Garnier, which is Paris's opera house. Once again, we didn't go in and watch a show, but it was very beautiful on the outside, and there were people lining up to go inside. I promise we did go inside some places. We just also walked past a lot of really pretty places. After this, we went to the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and this is, as the name suggests, France's National Library. It's a gorgeous library that you can go into for free, and it has this room called the Oval Room, which is open to the public, so everybody can come in here. You can check out stuff from their extensive collection and just spend an afternoon here reading. They also have this beautiful patio, and it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous library. I loved it. Not pictured in the video is the delicious lunch that we had before heading back out into the streets and doing some window shopping. I think one of the best things, or at least one of my favorite things about visiting Paris, is just getting to do some shopping, or like actually getting to go into shops and just seeing all the little knickknacks that are everywhere. There's just places everywhere you look, and no matter what street you go down, you will stumble into some really cute gems of shops. Another one of my favorite things about traveling is getting to visit all the different parks in a country, especially traveling outside of the United States. I just feel like parks in other places are so gorgeous, and it was the middle of fall in Paris, so the trees were looking lovely at the Tuileries garden. So we had a really nice stroll through here. We walked past the Louvre, which is right next door, and we went to Palais Royal, which was also nearby, and we also just checked out the outside of it. After this, we headed back to the flat for a tiny bit of resting, and we picked up some things at the local corner store, and then we headed back out to the Trocadero to once again get a close-up view of the tower, this time at night during the sunset. So we got a really good spot at this overlook, and we just kind of camped out there because we wanted to see the tower as the sun was setting. Here I was trying to get the same shot for some cool transitions that I was like thinking up in my mind, but unfortunately those didn't really work out. But the tower still looks very beautiful as the sun is setting. They light it up, and then I think it's either at 7 or I forgot when, but like right at the sunset hour, they start up these twinkling lights, and they last for 10 minutes, and then they happen on the hour every hour, I believe, up to like midnight or maybe like 1 or 2 a.m. So that was really cool. And then we headed down to the little park underneath the tower, and we had a little picnic, and we celebrated my little sister's birthday, which had just happened a few days before. We got a little wine, a little cheese, and we got her a little birthday macaron to celebrate. And it was just a really fun night with my family. So that was day 2 in Paris. This day was really fun. It was really a day of just walking around, exploring different neighborhoods, different shops, seeing a lot of iconic Paris landmarks. And we didn't really have any set plans or like anywhere that we had to be at any certain time, so I really enjoyed like this less structured day where we just kind of wandered the city. We still did and saw a lot, but it was just a little more go with the flow. And yeah, it was a really good one, and this is my spread for day 2. I got some postcards throughout my trip, and I thought it would be fun to incorporate them into the travel journal spread. So this is how I added them to the pages, and then I just continued like my little journal entry on the back of that postcard. Day 3 morning, we headed to the Louvre. When we booked our tickets months ago, we got the earliest time slot because we know how insanely popular this museum is and how packed it gets. So we were there before it opened, got in the queue, and like pretty much every other person, as soon as we were let in, we beelined to the museum's most popular work, of course, the Mona Lisa. We pretty much just followed the crowd here, and we were able to get a really good look at her from the front, and seconds later, this entire hall was packed to the brim. I mean, it is a very impressive and iconic piece. We had to come look at her, but it does get a little overwhelming, and the painting is pretty small, so we took our pictures and then headed to see the rest of the museum, which is incredibly big. There are so many halls, so many floors, so many pieces that it would take us days to fully explore and take in. every single one of the things at this museum. So we kind of made a list beforehand of the most well-known pieces and the things that we wanted to see. So we were kind of wandering the halls just to see the big heavy hitters and things that were most important to us. And the museum gets progressively more and more packed as the day goes on, as you can imagine, as more people are coming in. So yeah, we made our way around, saw a lot of lovely pieces, and I had been to the Louvre once before, but I had not been to the side of the Louvre that has the Napoleon apartments, and these are incredible. They're very luxurious and extravagant, and spoiler alert, later on in the video, we're gonna go to Versailles, which is of course super luxurious and opulent, but this is on another level, I feel like, even than Versailles, so this was very impressive. And another fun fact about our Louvre visit is that we were here literally the same week as the heist that happened. We were there like a few days before, so I'm not gonna say more than that, but very interesting. If you see me rocking some very fancy jewelry, just mind your business, okay? Anyway, after our morning at the museum, we headed to the city's Latin Quarter. We had some lunch, and then we tried to visit the Pantheon, but it was closed to the public because they were setting up some kind of national memorial that they were going to be having that weekend. So we left and we headed back closer to the River Seine, and we stopped by this little square in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral that had this tree, which allegedly is the oldest tree in Paris. It is very big, but to be the oldest tree, I was a little skeptical. I saw this beautiful pigeon. I was really like entranced by this pigeon. In the video, it doesn't look that impressive, but it was a beautiful pigeon. Okay, and then we went to Shakespeare and Company, which is a very famous, very iconic bookstore. It was beautiful, but we weren't allowed to record inside. But I did get a couple of things from the gift shop, and I got a matcha latte from their coffee shop next door. We then headed across the street to Notre Dame Cathedral. We once again just stopped by here to look at it from the outside. It's a very beautiful cathedral, and we didn't get to go inside. Lines are very, very long, with or without reservations, and we thought about trying to come really early to try to get in without such a long line, but we decided against it just to look at it from the outside. And they've been doing a lot of restoration since the 2019 fire, and it was really cool to learn about as well. They have all of those information boards outside of the cathedral. After this, we headed once again back to Montmartre, our favorite spot, and this time we were here to explore the neighborhood during the evening sunset hours, and it was really, really cool. A lot more crowded than when we came in the morning, but still, it wasn't too bad. It was just very lively and just a good atmosphere. And this time, all of the shops and restaurants and cafes and everything were open, so we got to do a little bit of exploring and souvenir shopping, and everything in all the shops was just so cute. And I got a crepe. I had been craving a crepe, and these at the spot I ended up getting them looked so good, so I got one, and they were very good. Craving satisfied, and yeah, we just had a very lovely evening in Montmartre.
You want to try it?
We are on to day 4 of our Paris trip, and this day consisted entirely of going to Mont St. Michel, which is actually in the Normandy region of France, so it was quite a few hours away from Paris. So we booked a guided tour that included the bus ride to Mont St. Michel and entry to the Abbey. So we started off the day really early, we got on the bus, and then it was like a 4-hour ride to Mont St. Michel. But it was a very lovely ride. Our tour guide was explaining a lot of things along the way, and the foliage and the views out the window were really nice. So it was just a very relaxing couple of hours. And then as we were getting closer, we could see the Abbey in the distance. So Mont St. Michel is actually this tiny town that's on an island, and it's only accessible through a single bridge. And when the tide rises, you actually can't get to the island at all. The bridge is covered by the sea. But during our time of visit, the tide was slow, so we were able to get on a shuttle from the mainland to the island. And there are a few people that live in this tiny town, but mostly it's just a tourist destination and a historical site. And at the top of the town is the Abbey, which the tour included tickets to. So we walked through the town up to the Abbey, and all of this obviously is a lot of uphill. There's a lot of steps, and it was really busy. There was a lot of people, some dogs. And the visit option that we purchased was an audio guide, self-guided tour. So we did have an app that we downloaded, and we had our headphones in, and the app just kind of took you through all the different rooms in the Abbey and told you a lot of history and things to look out for. So that was really nice. We had a lot of freedom. We didn't have a live tour guide, but we were able to just go at our own pace and check out all the different things while still getting a lot of the history and information through the audio tour. So here you can see there are some groups of people that visit and are very brave, very adventurous, and they actually go out into the sand where the tide rises, and obviously the tide is really low right now, so you can go out there, but it's very sandy. It's almost like quicksand. So those people were having fun out there. After our tour of the Abbey itself, we went back out into the little town, and it's a very charming little town. You can kind of wander around and get lost in these tiny alleyways. So that's what we did. We explored the town, went into some shops, and got some lunch. I tried a galette, which is like the Normandy version of a crepe, and it was very yummy. And we had to be back on the bus by a certain time to make sure we weren't left and to make sure we would get back to Paris on time. So we just explored until it was time to go, and we got back on the shuttle and then made our way back onto the mainland. And here's some more people being adventurous, having fun in the sand, and me trying to inconspicuously film them.
On the left, look at the sheep, look at the number. Les moutons de présalé. Les moutons. Barbecue, barbecue.
So for days 3 and 4 of the travel journal spread, I kind of did a similar thing as before with the postcards. I included them as these little flaps here. So there's one for day 3 and Shakespeare and Co. And then one for day 4 for Mont St. Michel. And we are on to day 5, and day 5 of our trip was mostly dedicated to visiting the Chateau de Versailles, which is, of course, the iconic palace and former residence of several monarchs of France, including Louis XIV, and then most famously to me, Marie Antoinette. This was where she resided for most of her time as Queen of France, and this is where she lived right before she was imprisoned and then executed eventually. So very, very iconic. And it's just known for like its opulence and for how sprawling it is and how luxurious and just how incredibly wealthy and what a life of excess and indulgence all these French monarchs lived like right before the French Revolution. So very historical, very cool to see once again. So the palace itself and the grounds, they were packed. There were a lot of visitors. We got here early and spent most of the morning and afternoon here. And for this site, we also did a self-guided audio tour, which worked okay for some of us who had a good signal and had downloaded stuff before, but some of us on the spot trying to like load things, it was a little more tedious. But regardless, very, very impressive, very cool to see, very steeped in history. There's also some halls that are dedicated all to Napoleon because he also used some of the buildings and the grounds here when he was in power. So there's a lot of halls and paintings dedicated to him. And the main palace is the largest, obviously the most luxurious, the most iconic, but my favorite part is the gardens. They are so beautiful, so well kept, so huge. We weren't able to even see and walk all of them because they're so vast, but Every little inch of the gardens is so beautiful. So we spent a lot of time here as well, walking through the gardens, and from the main palace we made our way to the Grand and Petit Trianons, which are some buildings that are a lot smaller than the main palace, and they were known as like the private quarters of royalty. So the Grand Trianon is known as Louis XIV's private residence, and then the Petit Trianon is known as Louis XV, and then it was gifted to Marie Antoinette, so she is very much associated with the Petit Trianon, and you can really see like her stamp and influence on it. And I had just recently seen Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, and although I know that movie's not 100% historically accurate, it still features these smaller palaces and the gardens here a lot, so it was just very cool to see. The gardens in this area of the palace grounds were also my personal favorite. They were so beautiful. There were so many beautiful flowers, and it's a little more it's still really well kept, but it's a little more wild looking than like the very perfect, neat gardens near the main palace. Both of these smaller palaces are on the complete opposite end of the grounds, so once we were done here, we were pretty tired. We didn't want to walk all the way back to the entrance, so we did take a little train ride, which was very nice, and then we left Versailles, had a nice Italian dinner, and then guess where we went to end the night? That's right, we went back to Montmartre. And this time we took the funicular up to the top of the hill, and it was very crowded, both inside this little funicular and just in the streets of Montmartre in general, because there was a festival going on. So this was during the Fête de Vendage, which is Montmartre's annual grape harvest festival. So a lot of people come together, a lot of vendors, and there's just a lot of local wine, cider, food, a lot of different people selling different things. It was very crowded, but it was a really good time. And it is our 6th and final day in Paris. We started off the morning with a little stroll around town. We dropped off some postcards at a post office, and then we just made our way through the streets of Paris. We got some coffee. It was a really beautiful day, and we didn't have anywhere to be for a couple of hours, so we got some pastries, we ate some delicious eclairs. We did our last little stint of shopping, and then after this we headed to a tour that we had booked of Sainte-Chapelle. Sainte-Chapelle is one of the most beautiful churches I've ever been to, and I've been to plenty of churches in my day of varying levels of extravagance and beauty, and this is definitely up there. We had a very lovely tour guide who was telling us all about the history of the chapel and all these beautiful stained glass panels and what they each represent, and then just the importance of the church throughout time in France. After our tour of Sainte-Chapelle, we went next door to the conciergerie. So this building served many purposes throughout time in France, and it used to be a banquet hall for royalty in Paris, and then for some time it also served as a prison for prisoners of the revolution, and it held Marie Antoinette right before she was put to trial and executed. And it also served as a courthouse around the time of the French Revolution. So this has a lot of history. We learned a lot through the complimentary interactive self-guided tour, so that was really cool. After this, we headed to see the Pompidou, which was closed because it's under restoration, but it's just a very cool and unique building, so we wanted to go see it. And there's this little plaza with this funky fountain right next to the Pompidou, so we hung out there for a little while. And then after this, we headed to the Luxembourg Gardens. The fall colors were in full display at these gardens here. It was a beautiful autumn afternoon at the gardens. So we got some ice cream, we walked around, we had a really lovely afternoon here. There was a lot of people, a lot of families, but it's a park, there was lots of room to sprawl out, and we had a great time. And this was basically our last stop of the day and our last stop of the trip in Paris. So after this, we had some dinner, and then that was it for our last day in Paris. Are they still here? Cascos. For dinner, we went to this restaurant called Versailles de l'Entrecôte, and in English I think that means steak relay, so that pretty much describes what this restaurant was like. You have to wait outside in a line, they don't take reservations, and then you're just in and out, and everybody eats the same meal, which is steak and fries, and it was a really cool experience. The food was good, and then we headed back to our hotel, and that was our final day and the end of our trip in Paris. We had a really, really lovely time. This little croissant is what I'll keep with me to remember this trip by, as well as this travel journal. So here is the final spread of the trip.